What if I told you that being good with money has less to do with how smart you are and everything to do with how you act? Well, that's the big idea behind Morgan Housel's brilliant book, The Psychology of Money. And in this explainer, we're going to break down some of its most powerful lessons. All right, let's really dig into this quote because it's the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about. Housel argues that finance isn't some hard science like physics. Nope, it's a soft skill. It's much more about psychology. It's not about being a math whiz with spreadsheets. It's about what's going on in your head. And to really see this idea in action, the book kicks off with this incredible real-life story. It's a tale of two fortunes that seem to defy all logic. So check this out. On one hand, you've got Ronald Reed. This guy was a janitor. He patiently saved and invested what little he earned, lived a really simple life, and when he died, he left behind an $8 million fortune. And then you have Richard Fuscone. I mean, this guy is the exact opposite. Harvard-educated, MBA, a top finance executive who got greedy, took on way too much debt, and ended up completely bankrupt. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that the janitor crushed the executive. It just goes to show you that behavior, things like patience and not getting greedy, can totally wipe out a massive gap in education and experience. This doesn't happen in other fields. You'd never see a janitor perform a better heart surgery than a trained surgeon, right? Okay, so if we agree that behavior is king, then the big question is why? Why do we all act so differently with our money? Well, Housel's answer is that our financial choices are shaped by a reality that is completely and uniquely our own. And this quote, man, it just nails it. Think about it. Your personal experience with money is this tiny, tiny fraction of what's ever happened in the financial world, but it accounts for like 80% of how you think the whole system works. We're all basically looking at the economy through our own little keyhole. Let's put that into perspective. Say you were born in 1970. You grew up watching stocks just take off like a rocket. So of course, you learned that stocks are a great way to build wealth. But what if you were born just 20 years earlier, in 1950? You would have seen the market go absolutely nowhere for years. Your lesson? Totally different. You'd think, stocks? Nah, too risky. And it's the same thing with inflation, right? If you grew up in the 70s, you saw prices just spiraling out of control. It was a huge deal. But if you're younger, born in the 90s, inflation has barely even been a thing for most of your life. These aren't just small differences. They create completely different versions of financial reality.
And that's the whole point. No one is crazy. That person you see buying lottery tickets instead of investing, it might look totally irrational to you, but in their world, based on their experiences, it might feel like their only shot. We're all just telling ourselves stories to make our financial decisions feel sane.
All right, so once you start to understand your own biases, your own money story, that's step one. Step two is actually applying that to build wealth. And this is where Housel makes a really critical distinction. He says there's getting rich and then there's staying rich, and they are not the same thing. When we think about getting rich, especially from investing, there's one name that pops into everyone's head, right? Warren Buffett. And his skill, we all know, is investing. But what if I told you his real secret, the true superpower behind his massive fortune, isn't just his skill? It's time. It's the absolutely mind-bending power of compounding, just doing its thing year after year after year. Get this. Of his $84.5 billion net worth, a staggering $81.5 billion of it was earned after his 65th birthday, after he was already eligible for Social Security. That's insane. He started investing as a kid, sure, but his real wealth didn't just come from being a great investor. It came from surviving long enough for that compounding to work its incredible magic. And that's where you see how different these two skills are. Getting wealthy, that often means taking big risks. You have to be optimistic. You have to put yourself out there. But staying wealthy, that's a whole different ballgame. It's about being humble, even a little paranoid. It's about saving and having this constant fear that what you've built could vanish in a flash. The author Nassim Taleb said it best. Having an edge and surviving are two different things. The first requires the second. At the end of the day, you just have to survive. You have to avoid getting wiped out at all costs. Because if you can do that, you stay in the game long enough for the odds to eventually turn in your favor. So, this all brings us to the big final question. Maybe the most important one. What's the point of all this anyway? What is money really for? And the book's answer is that it's not about the fancy cars or the huge houses.
Citing research from a psychologist named Angus Campbell, Housel shows that the single biggest driver of happiness isn't how much stuff we have. It's having a strong sense of control over our own lives.
So that's it. That's true wealth. It's the ability to wake up every single morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. It's not a number. It's freedom. It's control over your time. And that, right there, is the best return money can ever give you. And so that leaves us with one final, crucial question you have to ask yourself. When you think about your money, your financial goals, are you just chasing a bigger number, or are you using your money to buy back your time, to buy your own freedom?